another super goal.
Welcome back, everybody, pitchside. England have won this one 22 points to 6. There's a little bit of an arm wrestle at the start, but England ran away with it in the end.
Champions, the London Monarchs. Winners of 2018. Well done, boys. Let's give it up. Go on, lads. Season's greetings from the Rock in West London, home of historic Rosslyn Park. But today, the scene of the Premiership Rugby Under-18 Academy Southern Conference clash between Harlequins and Gloucester. Now, if you're currently looking back remorsefully on your Christmas indulgences, the sight of 45 of the most talented youngsters in English rugby putting your athleticism to shame might not be the morale-boosting tonic you so wished. But if you're a rugby fan, then this contest should get your mouth watering once again. It's Harlequins v Gloucester, a 12 o'clock kickoff, and of course, Harlequins' big game to follow at 4:30. So time enough to meet today's teams before they trot out on this famous ground. And starting with the home side, Harlequins, well, they came unstuck against London Irish only last week in a 41-31 high-scoring defeat. But there's plenty of optimism in this side of talented youngsters. Jamie Benson wears the 10 jersey. He is just a lower sixth, under 17, came through the Richmond Junior ranks, and he captains the side after a strong St Joe's Festival tournament representing Hampton. The other man to watch is in the forwards. It's Finn Baxter wearing the 3 jersey, England Under-18's captain for one of the games on tour in South Africa this summer, Wellington captain for their St Joe's Festival victory and a winner of the RFU trophy. Hello.
As for Gloucester, it's a mishmash of Dean Close, Chapman College, St Peter's and Hartbury College superstars. There's speed in the back line with many Cinderford players representing. We've got a speedster in the number 11 jersey of Sam Burgess. And when it comes to the forwards, well, there's representation across the board. In the 7 jersey, it's Harry Taylor, an England player in South Africa. Treads that fine line that every great 7 does between legality and illegality. And he's backed up by the man in the number 8 jersey, Benji Williams, a Welshman. In the 18 squad, a powerful and destructive runner. So I'm delighted to welcome my co-commentator for today. It is Stash Long, who is Academy Education Advisor for Harlequins. So she has intimate, integral knowledge on the Quins players and also a real sense of what the Academy system is looking to achieve and looking what it is going to give these young lads through their developmental stage of their career. Stash, thank you so much for taking time out of your Christmas break to join us.
No problem, nice to be here.
So, Stash, how do you see this one unfolding?
Well, I'm hoping that it's going to be a really exciting game of rugby. I'm hoping that the boys are going to play kind of without too much fear of risk and that we're going to see a really high-scoring game today.
Well, that's exactly it. It's adventure, it's freedom without fear of admonishment, because this is developmental. It's time for these young stars to try and shine, to try and learn their craft, and also just be without fear of making mistakes.
Yep, really looking forward to it.
Well, referee Neil Chivers is the man pursing his lips to the whistle for this one. Quins send it long, but they have possession almost immediately as Gloucester cough it up, and it's their first chance to attack from the halfway line. Christian Tate of Seaford College, the man pulling the strings in the 9 jersey. Lovely handling from the fullback, darting through the gap. Connor Slevin that was. Brings Quins to the 22, a show and a step inside. Good ambition from Quins, who have penalty advantage. Oh, there's that man Slevin again. Finds some space down the left. Basketball style passing from Quins, who free up some space on the left wing, then just a metre short. A roll from the winger. But the referee brings it back for advantage, and that's the adventure that we were speaking about pre-game. Stash and Harlequins not afraid to throw it around.
Yeah, I love that. I love that they're trying to keep the ball alive. There's big emphasis on not having too many contests for possession, and it's working really well for them. They're making steady ground, and they just showed that their handling's on form today, and they look dangerous.
Yes, some wonderful hands from Connor Slevin in the midfield. Pass a little behind him. We managed to tap it back in front of him and then regather. And there again, the adventure, the ambition. Easy points in front of the poles, but Quins pop it into the corner here on the near side, right by our commentary gantry. In fact, this is a prime bit of real estate for this line out, where we're going to see the first set piece action of the game. Ball in hooker, Nathan Jabulu's hands. And good drills to start for Quins as they build the drive. They've got momentum. Gloucester temporarily halted, but Quins regather some pace, and the hooker breaks off, and that's a try within 3 minutes. Well crafted from the set piece. The man who found his jumper, Nathan Jabulu, breaking off and too powerful to stop from close range. Here we see very, very well constructed. The success of a driving maul is all about the strength of the foundation, Stash.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's just having that awareness as well. So often teams can hold onto that ball a little bit too long and risk giving away a penalty there, but looked really solid from Harlequins. They just did the basics well. They set up really good body positions to start with, and that allowed Nathan the space to just look up and spot that there was nobody on that blind side, and he just darted over for an easy try.
Well, oh so easy from Jamie Benson for the extras as well. Nonchalant as he slots that one through the poles, and it is a 7-0 lead within the opening few minutes here at Rosslyn Park. Gloucester, no possession thus far to speak of, and an important kickoff for them to try and get a toehold in this game. They send it steepling high, pressure take, but wonderfully taken by Chris Preen, the Hurstpier point man. Quins, wind in their sails, although scrappy at the breakdown there, puts their scrum half under pressure. Tidied up for Finn Baxter in the unusual role of scrum half. Quins happy to have the ball in hand at the moment and just work their way out of their half. Oh, that looked like a bit of cute play from the Quins forwards to work a penalty there, Stash.
Well, it just seems like Gloucester are only committing 1 or 2 players to the opposition breakdown, which means that Quins are not having to put as many in to secure the ball, and that's just giving them options, really. So it's harder for Gloucester to defend because there's so many options when that ball comes out the back of the ruck.
We see a replay of the penalty. The Gloucester player just getting his leg stuck in there. Nice bit of ring craft as well from the Quins players to emphasise that his leg was indeed stuck in there and milk the penalty. You can see quite clearly there Neil Shivers saying not rolling away. And there we get some first phase attack, a good carry in the midfield to get Quins on their way. They look to go wide immediately. Step inside. Oh, that's a hand in there from Gloucester. The referee lets it go because Quins maintain possession. Plenty of runners and options, and that's lovely play down the right wing. Bit of footwork from the big second row. Enzo Croy takes the play up to the 22. Gloucester being picked apart at the moment early in this game. Plenty of variety to the Quins game. A dummy run from Finn Baxter. Oh, out the back door from Quins. And now a break from Gloucester. They feed the speedster I mentioned in the pre-match build-up. And now Gloucester dragged into touch just shy of the Quins 22. We saw a glimpse of Sam Burgess's pace from the transition ball, and that'll be heartening for Gloucester.
Yeah, they'll be grateful to have had some possession, and they'll be grateful to have made ground with that possession as well. It's quite disheartening at the start of a game when Harlequins won their own line out with the first kick of the game, and to then not have had much possession to really make some ground. They made sort of 40, 50 metres with this break. They'll be really pleased with that.
Well, we saw the athleticism of Arthur Clark there in the 4 jersey for Hartbury. He's currently on a full-time agricultural course at Hartbury College, so he's on a full-time farming placement and training full-time with Gloucester. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, that's what I love about the ACE programme. It gives so much scope for players who aren't doing conventional subjects or who aren't doing A-levels to still be involved in a rugby programme that's as good, if not better, than some school programmes, and without having to lose that opportunity for education.
Well, here we go. Gloucester on the transition. They've got it into the centre's hands, and they're just up to the 22. The first time we've seen Luke Shuttleworth have a crack. But the Quins defence standing strong at the moment. That's lovely play into that man's hands, who we mentioned just a moment ago, Arthur Clark. Rangy, showing himself to be a good link man, but lovely footwork from Jamie Howells. And they break the 22 threshold for the first time, onto the toe. Pressure on the Quins man at the back, a fumble. He regathers, but untidily. It's going to bring the first scrum of the game, and just like that, the pressure's right back on Quins, and Gloucester in with a chance to level the scores from this scrum.
Yeah, really good decision there from Luke Shuttleworth to keep that ball in play, keep that ball alive, and just put Harlequins under pressure deep in their own 22.
Jamie Benson, the man at the back, covering under extreme pressure. Not only was it the cuteness of the kick through, but also the flood of red jerseys that came through to force that error. Thunderous footsteps behind your ears isn't what you want to hear when you're on your 5 metre line trying to collect an awkward ball.
No, and he did the right thing by trying to wait.
Gloucester take the tap quick, but the referee calls them back. First scrum of the game, penalty to Gloucester. Setting their stall out early. Quick tap looked to be the right call from Maddie Jones, an electric, snipey little scrum half. The referee calling them back. They go to the corner. We're going to see Gloucester's driving game here potentially now. Seb Blake finds his man, but it's a messy lift from Gloucester, and they fall to the deck. They're going to have to go the hard way, but that's a great carry to blast the Quins jerseys out of the way, 3 metres short. It's patient, it's coordinated from Gloucester at the moment. They've got big men with plenty of power as they search for that post protector, but a turnover from Quins. Finn Baxter the man on that one like a limpet. And that
a terrific piece of play. All the momentum with the red jerseys, but Finn Baxter, patient, stood off the tackle and then clamped him down and gave the referee no option but to hoist his arm to the Quins side.
Really good anticipation there from Quins. They could see that there was no real, the ball wasn't really going to go out. They could see the forwards just lining up to pick and drive, and that just made it easy for one man to chop and the other guy to come straight over the top.
Second line out of the game for Quins. The first so fruitious, leading to the try for their hooker. Again, the drills are good. Again, they build a drive. And again, they go to hands, even though they're in their 22, but that's Aaron, and it's gonna pop up for Gloucester. Quins under pressure, but they recover very well indeed. Against the odds, Oscar Beard in there. The Cranley man, he hasn't lost the game for his school this year. Cranley, an undefeated season. So often they seem to have undefeated seasons, Cranley. Strong sevens heritage. It was his scrambling capacity that was called into question there. Quins look to carry out. A bit more patient, bit more composed now. Boot to ball from the scrum half. And counter opportunity for Jamie Howes. Takes some yards before being tackled to the floor by Cassius Cleves. Gloucester will want to get some concerted possession. Every time they've had the ball, it seems to have only been for a breadth stash.
Yeah, they'll be really pleased with this run of play. They're playing a very similar style of rugby to Harlequins in terms of keeping it alive, and both teams happy to play out their own 22.
Well, Quins struggling to relieve the pressure at the moment. They seem to be finding Jamie Howes with regularity, who doesn't need to be asked twice to counter back with speed. They're set up in the middle, and they've been getting so much good purchase down this right flank. They probe down there once more in that 15 channel. This time they carry through Toby Tyson. Lovely ball, but just a whisker forward. Seb Blake being released through the gap by James Humphreys. Oh, lovely play.
I think both teams will be pleased with their defence at the moment. Gloucester have done well to shepherd a few kicks that have come over the top and have immediately launched a counter, but both teams putting good low chop tackles in, and that's allowing quick rucks, which is good for both the attack and the defence.
Seb Blake there, almost making the bust. An opening batsman for Cheltenham College stash, so a man of many talents.
I'd imagine a lot of these guys have got a second or even a third sport that they play. Lots of encouragement at the moment in junior and youth sport on multi-sport and the transferable skills that improves and increases for them, and certainly lots of skill on show today from these boys.
Well, yes, the man who passed it to him, James Humphreys, also a talented cricketer, I'm led to believe. So a bit of telepathy brought about by the red conqueror of cricket. So scrum time for Quins. The last one was a penalty to Gloucester, but it goes nicely for the West London club. They carry off the base with good counter-rucking from Gloucester. It's disrupted it. Too high. Probably the second contact there. Some over-enthusiasm, and that's going to give Harlequins an opportunity to clear the decks. Goodness me, nearly 50 minutes on the clock. It's been a concerted period of pressure in the Quins half. They'll be delighted to be out and into Gloucester's part of the field, although they've missed touch with that penalty kick. Giving Gloucester the chance to steal back a few more metres.
I think Gloucester will be disappointed. They've conceded four penalties to Harlequins 1, and that's just allowed Harlequins to sort of get into the game a little bit more than they have. It's allowed them to go through a few more phases. That settles the nerves, especially with boys of this age, and it's just allowed them to get into the game a little bit more.
It's interesting you bring up the penalty count, because there's no doubt that we've got talented, athletic young men out on the field, but it's a step up to academy level from the schools that they play at, and they're under pressure to perform. They want to make a name for themselves, and it's just as much a management of their emotions and their enthusiasm, which often leads to these penalties, as it is to them creating magic with the ball in hand, which we're seeing Quins attempt to do with regularity in this first half. They found space into the hands of Cassius Cleves, 6 meters short now. Crisp handling down the right-hand side, unleashing Cassius, who showed strength and footwork to take them on a few more meters. They now sling it left. Surely it's going to be a try for the West London men, and what a finish by the number 8, Makeen Ali Khan. That was textbook rugby. Wonderful hands down the right, the burst from Cassius Cleves, and with Gloucester sucked in and Quins keeping their width, it was all too easy for the number 8. A great score.
Yeah, it's a fantastically well-worked try. A lot of it came through the depth that Harlequins are playing with in attack. It allows them to not only be under less pressure when they get the ball, but it's allowing them to look up and scan, and some great decision-making out there. Ball going through the hands of the forwards there in the run-up to that try, and that's what you want. You want your players to be as comfortable in the backs as a forward as you do your forwards when they have to, as your backs when they have to hit rucks and things. So, yeah, Quins will be really pleased with the way their attack's looking and shaping up, and they're just keeping things simple and doing them well.
Makeen Ali Khan, the scorer there, initially intended to start in the 6 jersey, but switched to 8, and to great effect. Benson unable to add the extras on this occasion, but a healthy 12-0 lead for Quins youngsters here over Gloucester. 17 minutes gone, a really entertaining affair so far. A lot of ambition, not much fear out there at all, Stash, which is what you were looking for.
Yeah, it's what you always want at this age, and I go back to what you were saying about a bit of over-exuberance, maybe giving away some of the penalties. Everybody will be trying to impress here, and yeah, they just need to control that and manage their emotions and settle into this game.
Well, Harlequins' kick-off receptions have been utterly supreme so far in this first half. Bit of a miscued box kick, creating some confusion in the melee of forwards, and in all that, a shove off the ball gives Gloucester possession back immediately. This one goes into the corner, and after taking the ball so cleanly and setting up that nice platform to clear, Harlequins will be desperately disappointed to now find themselves defending a line out 10 metres out.
Yeah, it was probably the right decision for the 9 to kick, but just unnecessary to give away a penalty in that situation.
So the Cheltenham College man, Seb Blake, finds his man. Messy transfer and a knock-on from Harry Taylor.
Gloucester will think that's a big opportunity missed there. I watched them practicing their line out in training, and it looked solid, it looked quite crisp. They'll be disappointed with that.
Much better line out. They brought the jumper down a lot more safely on this occasion. Just that transfer was the missing piece of the puzzle. You can see the frustration in Blake there. Missed much of last season with an MCL injury, so he's champing at the bits to pull the Gloucester jersey on and really have a concerted run in the side. And there's the Gloucester strength at scrum time. Quins, though, they do well to handle it. Out to the centres and cleared only up to the halfway line, into the hands of the flyer, Sam Burgess. Well tackled, just on the 10-metre line. Carried by Williams. A change in tact from Humphreys, who puts the bomb up. Well handled by the Quins backfield. Taking some time to get out. Gloucester doing well to slow the ball up into the hands of the try scorer, who's driven back with intensity, and Gloucester all over Quins. But they stay calm, they find Baxter, takes them out of the 22. So they're out now, so they can't kick it out on the full, but they don't want to anyway. They want to run this. Almost held up in the tackle. Ed Timpson, the St John's Leatherhead player. What a tutelage he's receiving from Craig Newby, the former All Black back row, the head of rugby at St John's Leatherhead. How exciting is that? That's one thing we're seeing in the game an awful lot, Stash, is ex-pros going to schools and teaching now. And as a youngster, how exciting to be coached by an All Black in your position, a man who's done it at the top of the game.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love watching ex-players who are now coaches in schools, especially those who have been so recently in the game. I'm really fortunate at Trinity that we've got a number of ex-players amongst our coaching staff and current players as well, and that makes such a massive difference to the experience that the boys get. I'm not saying it's the be-all and end-all, but when you hear those guys talking firsthand about their experiences, our director of rugby, Ian Kench, is really keen to get that experience as good as possible. He wants those boys to leave school with an absolute love of the game, and that for me is the direction that rugby should and is going, thankfully, in schools, and that inspiration coming from guys who've played the game at the highest level is just fantastic.
Well, that's the first line out steal on Harlequins' ball. Gloucester coming away with it. Those sides struggling to cherish possession at the moment, it's fair to say. The set piece has been faltering for Gloucester, certainly when it comes to the line out. You see the first missed throw from Quins there. Both sides struggling for consistency a little at the moment, but Quins get a second bite at the cherry now. Their line-out has been good up until the last throw. This is a perfect view of how it all works. But well played by Gloucester, though. After doing the hard work of getting in front, the knock-on from Arthur Clark, and it's going to be a scrum to Harlequins.
Yeah, Harlequins seem to have just lost a tiny bit of confidence after that last loss in the line-out. They've been doing really well up to then. They'd won 4 out of 4 of their first line-outs so far up to then. Nathan just needs to put that out of his head now, not let it affect him, and stick to what their processes and their calls are.
Speaking of the set piece at this age, athleticism plays such a huge part. How much did the technical ability count when coaching 18-year-olds in terms of scrummaging and line out?
I think it has a really important place in the game. I think it's a really important facet of the game, but I think it's also something that is really important for youngsters to learn. And
here we go, Quins, down the right flank through some more basketball style passing, and despite the attentions of 3 red jerseys, Keaton Ojo with a masterful finish in the corner. He was mid-air, careering out of the field of play, but he transferred the ball into his right hand and managed to dot down after consultation between Neil Shivers and Gareth Holsgrove. Let's take another look at this. Great pass over the top. Sam Burgess sucked in. So much to do for the Quins winger. We see him barged out, but he kept his feet up in the air and dotted down. What a finish from Ojo.
yeah, it was a great finish by Ketan there. He'll be really pleased with that effort. He knew how close to the line he was. He knew he needed to get in the air, and a great placement of the ball over in the corner for a well-deserved Harlequins try. What I'm loving is just the range of passes that Quins are using. We're used to seeing really conventional two-handed spin passes, but whatever pass is going to get the ball to where you want it to get to, in my opinion, is fine. And youngsters should be thinking that actually, if Sonny Bill Williams had been told he could only pass two-handed and he could only do a proper spin pass, we'd have missed out on such an exciting part of the game that we've seen.
Well, from a coaching point of view, you clearly see a huge amount of value in giving kids the freedom to try all these different ranges of passing, different styles of game. Rugby netball is a very good warm-up game, but having games where maybe you're banned from using conventional passes to make you think outside the box, so that when you're in those positions, then you can set up the likes of Ojo with a basketball-style pass.
Yeah, I just think coaches need to have the confidence that actually it doesn't have to look like what you've got in your head. If that pass achieves the outcome that you wanted it to achieve, which is to get it to a player who's in space or get it to a player who's in a better position than you, it doesn't matter how you do that. As long as the ball goes backwards, and it serves its purpose, then for me that's great, and that's what we should be encouraging as coaches.
Like Gloucester, 17-0 down. They need a response. They've had opportunities. Their set pieces let them down, but they have looked good with the ball in hand, especially when probing down the right flank. They're driven back past the halfway line. Thought to go to the boots. Was that a block from the Quins player? The referee says no. Stash, you're shaking your head next to me as well. You agree with him as we see Cassius Cleves go on another charge. What strength, what hands to find the offload. Quins really playing with freedom, really playing with confidence at the moment. And a scrappy breakdown sees the ball going to touch, and it's a line out.
Yeah, I just think what Quins are doing better than Gloucester at the moment is they're just getting better go forward, and that's so damaging as a defence. It's so hard when you're on the back foot, but we see an example here where the Quins players are just breaking that gain line every time and keeping that ball alive by getting the offload away. It doesn't allow the defence time to reset, it doesn't allow them time to organise, it doesn't allow them time, importantly, to turn and face to see what might be coming next. So that's working really well for Quins at the moment.
Well, the easy thing to do is to laud the quality of the offload, but he needs to have the players around him, and the Quins players seem to instinctively be in support at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you watch matches, you inherently get an insight into what training must look like, and I know that in academy training at Harlequins there's a massive emphasis on players making decisions and really high skill sets, and I know Tofty does a lot of work with that, and I think that's really showing now, because ultimately what you do in training is what you do in a match.
Sam Burgess unleashed after a triple miss pass over the top, but managed into touch once again. The Quins defensively fierce, and look at the speed at which they want to play this game. The ball's back in play, the ball's now on the left flank, and it's in the hands of that danger man, Cassius Cleves, who breaks once again. He steps, he weaves, he's got one man to beat. Can they stop him? No, they can't. A wondrous try from the number 11, Cassius Cleves of Wellington College, but that all came from the speed of thought from the line out to get the ball into play, spread it wide, and give that man the space to destroy the Gloucester defence.
Yeah, we were just talking about Quins always having those players in support. You can only take quick lineouts when other people in your team are on the same page as you, and there were at least 4 Quins players behind the ball there that allowed him to have that option, and they caught Gloucester napping a little bit. Cassius saw some mismatches in that midfield and just backed himself, backed his footwork, which is incredible, backed his pace, and he got over for a really well-deserved individual try from within his own half.
There he is, the Wellington College lads, injured early in the St Joseph's College Festival, which Wellington went on to win for the first time in their school careers. The only trophy that was missing from their school's cabinet. Finn Baxter playing 3 for Quins today, captained them to that glory. Cleves not playing as much of a role as he probably would have liked, but he did get to feature in their trophy run where they defeated Rugby School at Allianz Park only a few weeks ago. So a very, very successful season for Wellington. It's no surprise with players like Baxter and Cleves tearing up trees.
Always in.
So Gloucester really under the pump in this first half. They've had no answer for Quins' speed of thought, their sense of adventure. But can they get a score on the board before the half-time break? So they've got something to sing about in that half-time huddle. Knock on from Quins. It's going to be a Gloucester scrum. They need to elevate those chins a couple of degrees from their chest at the moment, wouldn't you say, Stash?
Yeah, I think so. The trouble is they're trying to adapt their game to what Quins are doing, but Quins just seem to have so much more variety in attack. At that last kick, Gloucester took the kick off, Harlequins received it, and when they kicked that ball back, there were 4 Gloucester players back ready to receive that kick. Now what that means is, A, Harlequins know they can flood up and flood through and put a real good chase on that kick, but what it also means is, if they decided to run that, they're going to be running against so many fewer players in that defensive line, because Gloucester have had to drop players back because they're expecting the kick.
Gloucester, they attack right. Good hands into Burgess's hands, but a fumble from the left winger wrapping round.
One down under pressure.
Great bit of play. Burgess working hard to get round the corner and create that extra man. The gap was there.
One just underneath.
But a slight fumble led to the referee blowing his whistle and calling the playback for a penalty. And that's just kind of the way things are going for Gloucester at the moment. They're fashioning opportunities, but it's a fumble here, a sloppy drill there that's ceding possession back to Quins. They're just struggling to get that consistent possession, which so often yields points.
Yeah, Sam will be really frustrated with that. A completely unforced error. I think he just took his eye off the ball, but again, that comes from concerted pressure and not having the ball enough to really settle into this game.
Well, Clark mops up the mess at the back. He's been prominent in this first half, and he feeds it to Jack Piercy. Only converted from the back row this year, now finds himself playing tight head. What a transformation. But he's still got that back row DNA in him. Looking lively in the loose. Gloucester get to within 7 metres, but again a penalty, this time entry from the side. That Gloucester penalty account once again killing them, Stash.
Yeah, and it's killing them in really important territory kind of places of the pitch. That's the second penalty that they've conceded when they've been within about 5 metres of their try line, so they'll be really gutted that they've gone from a great attacking platform to just giving the ball back to Harlequins and allowing them to relieve that pressure really easily.
And Jamie Benson doesn't hesitate in rubbing salt into the wound by finding a halfway line touch.
Use the line, guys.
And in a flash, Gloucester with great territory. Great opportunity in front of the Quins poles. Back on the halfway line, defending a line out. They go short
Line out court.
with a trick play. But the referee calls not straight.
Not straight. Your player takes it in. No, your 4 called the line out.
Gloucester will take the scrum. No, they won't. They will take the line out. My apologies.
Quinn, step up.
It's an interesting call because their line out has probably been the weaker of their 2 set piece, but they go to Clark, and that's the cleanest ball they've had all day, but a miscommunication in the midfield. This is transition ball. We've seen how dangerous Quins are in open play. They put it on the toe. They put the pressure right back on the red jerseys. And once again, we find ourselves in Gloucester's half, just on the outskirts of their 22.
Yeah, Harlequins' kicking games worked really well for them today. It's helped them to manage the game, and at this level, that's something that is really good for their experience in terms of just being able to play the right type of rugby in the right areas of the game, and that's really helped Harlequins to just keep putting the pressure onto Gloucester.
Oh, no.
Gloucester battle their way through. It's quite static from them. It's a turnover from Harlequins. Are they going to get their 5th before half-time? No, but an interception from Gloucester. It's fast, it's loose, but that'll suit Gloucester. Into the former back row's hands, who spills the ball. Half-time can't come quick enough for Gloucester, just to reassess where they're at in their game, take a breath, pause, and tell themselves they've got 35 more minutes to turn this around, because they've got the ability to fashion these opportunities, but maybe a breather will help some of them stick.
Yeah, I think their coaches will be really frustrated, because I'd imagine that these are probably quite uncharacteristic handling errors for them, but don't underestimate the power of that pressure that Harlequins are putting on them, kind of in all facets of the game, on both sides of the ball, in attack and defence.
So our stream supported today by a number of companies. iSports Analysis, the world's most powerful online sports analysis platform. Mounted Memories, memorabilia framing specialists, helping you bring your items to life.
Go on, Benji! Go on, Benji!
Guardian Pro mouthguards, who give your teeth every sporting chance. Alive, designing your well-being. And of course, Delalio Rugby Works, who work with our young people on long-term skill development programs based on the values of rugby to get teenagers outside of mainstream education into sustained education, employment or training. In fact, we've got one of the Delalio Rugby Works lads on the cameras for us today. Cheers, mate, working with them very regularly, and some sterling individuals, I'll say as well, having worked with a number of them across a number of games and tournaments. And that's something we're going to come on to at halftime when we have a chat, Stash, about getting more lads from more diverse backgrounds into rugby and harnessing those rugby values that the Delalio Rugby Works is built upon, because it's not just about getting out and playing 80 minutes. It's not about a day's rugby. It's about what it makes you as a man or a woman in society. So that's coming up in the halftime chat. A wonderful steal from Arthur Clark. Gloucester, big carry in the middle. Can Gloucester get something to sing about in the halftime break with some good possession here?
Ball available.
It's with Matty Jones. Goes to the back, so goose step. Much better from Gloucester. Jones orchestrating things from the base. Big carry from Riley Scriven. Working as an apprentice joiner at the moment. Certainly showing his ability to destroy a defence rather than joining it. And much better from Gloucester. They've worked their way up to the halfway line, and they're finding some gaps and some perches around the fringes of the base. And here we go. This is it. Matty Jones breaks down the left. Oh, but he can't find his man in support, and Quins now break. Will they fancy their chances from this range in the closing moments of the first half? To Benson. Finds Slevin. Once again, penalty advantage to Quins, not rolling away. You see the exasperated throw of the hands in the air from the Gloucester players around that breakdown. They're sick and tired of giving away penalties, but the decision is in their hands, unfortunately. The referee having a word with the co-captain of Gloucester, giving his reasoning. Quinn say that's enough. We'll pump that out and call that half-time. It is Harlequins who lead Gloucester 24-0, a hugely entertaining first 35 minutes. Gloucester their own worst enemies in terms of penalty count, handling errors, in general mishaps with execution, but take nothing away from Harlequins, who have been sublime for this first 35 minutes. Stash, you've been impressed.
Yeah, I've For me, it's been about the battle of the gain line. I think Harlequins have broken it so well in attack. I think every time they've had the ball, whether that's from their own possession or whether that's been when they've got turnover ball, they've just looked so dangerous and so electric. And the thing that Gloucester are struggling with the most at the moment is stopping them from breaking that gain line and getting in behind their defence. And that's really hurting them, because the speed in which Harlequins are recycling the ball at the contact area just means that Gloucester have got no time to organise, they've got no time to set their structure, and that's really hurt them. And on the flip side, when Gloucester have had the ball, we've just seen a passage where for 3 or 4 minutes they've had a lot more secure possession, but they weren't breaking that gain line until Harlequins got caught then on the blind side without having any cover at that last ruck. The contacts that Harlequins were making on them were in front of their gain line every time. So Gloucester were looking after the ball, but they weren't getting any closer to their try line. And I just want to see a little bit more variety from them. I'd like to see them trying to split the Harlequins' defence a little bit more, work out ways to try and beat the game and get in behind them, because at the moment the things they've been trying to do so far this half haven't quite worked. And unfortunately then when they have made 2 or 3 breaks and they've been in open field and I thought, okay, this is it, there's a chance of them here, they've made an unforced handling error or the ball's gone forwards, and that's so frustrating and demoralising for your team, but it just seems like they're forcing it a little bit. I'd like to see them just play with a little bit more composure, be a little bit more relaxed and just settle into this game, because I don't really think we're seeing what they're capable of.
So a number of shortcomings for Gloucester to address at the half-time break, but let's celebrate the excellence of Harlequins. We've got the tries here, there were 4 of them in all. And first up, this was as textbook as it comes from Nathan Jabulu.
Yeah, just really good, solid body positions, a simple 4-man line out, but Gloucester just not working hard enough to cover those fringes, and when you're that close to the try line, that's where your danger points are. Everything else you want to back that you can read it as it's coming out and you can get into position, but you really have got to guard around those fringes in that area.
Well, McKean Alican was up next, and this platform was created by crisp hands down the right-hand side, and then forwards, backs, all in the mix out there in the wide channels to give the 8 the opportunity to dot down in the corner.
The key thing for me in that try was there were 3 Harlequins players in that 15-metre channel just lining up, and they'd held their depth, they'd held their width, and they were just being patient. They knew that ball was going to come down the line. Unfortunately, Gloucester felt that they couldn't push wide. It would have left too many gaps in the midfield and Quins would have probably been in under the post. But what it meant was there was a scramble defence because there wasn't a single red jersey in that 15-metre channel. So any one of those 3 players could have scored that try, and that all came just from the patience and the running lines and the depth of attack from Quins. It was a really well worked try. You can see there, no one in that 15-metre channel, just a scramble player coming across, and that's really easy, but a great finish there.
A lot of selfless lines being run, and if you thought that was a great finish, well, up next we've got Kit and Ojo, and how he got this down, I'm not sure I'll ever know. But again, we saw the variety of passing here from Quins, releasing Ojo, and take a look at this acrobatic finish.
It's a fantastic score. Again, the danger man Cassius broke through a couple of tackles. He got in behind that defensive line for Gloucester, and a lot of it's come from the players who are off the ball. So it's the running lines of the players that haven't got the ball, aren't going to receive it, but then keeping that ball alive. Because if he'd taken that into contact, Gloucester would have had time to realign in defence, and that try wouldn't have been scored. So the benefit of keeping that ball alive and not taking it into contact is so key. And again, we show this here when they take the quick line out, is why wait until the defence are organised? Why give them the opportunity when you think you can attack? And this man Cassius is causing all sorts of problems to the Gloucester defence.
Well, this try was the icing on the cake and really summed up what Harlequins were all about in the first half, not giving Gloucester that chance to settle and just playing with a freedom that allows these players, these champagne players like Cassius Cleese, like Ojo, to flourish and express themselves in that space.
Yeah, and rugby's a tactical game, and if you can outwit your opponents and you can play tactically quicker, faster, cleverer rugby than them, then the scoreline's going to reflect that, and that's what we've seen. So let's hope Gloucester come back and give Harlequins a real fight this second half.
So Neil Shivers readies both sides. It's Gloucester to kick off And Gloucester with a mountain to climb. They put it high into the West London sky, and it's a good chase. Substitutes on the field. Jack Hamilton getting his first contact early. Big opportunity for the men coming off the bench. Very athletic. Covers both second row and back row. We'll see where he shapes up when it comes to the set piece. But here come Quins from deep. And it's Slevin who looks inside to Benson. He steps inside. Great tackle from Matty Jones. Quins maintain the possession. More direct this time through their forwards. Gloucester have reorganised, and good line speed and an interception, man and ball. There we go, there's some invention from Gloucester. They're here to play now. The substitute, Jack Hewitt, having an immediate impact. Gloucester get outside, round the corner. And into the hands of the winger who has some space. Ojo marshals him expertly. Past the 10-metre line now. Scrappy pass. Leaves Humphreys with the only option but to drop on it. Arthur Clark once again involved. He's been everywhere so far in the game for Gloucester. One of the brightest stars of that first half, which shone a little bit dimly for the West Countrymen. Again, they're finding some good purchase around the fringes. Carrying explosively at close quarters. Good offload. Matty Jones stripped in the tackle and into the hands of the opening try scorer, Jabulu. Frenetic stuff. A charge down from Jones, who holds on to it. He's on the floor. Possession changing hands like a tennis match at the moment. A nefarious arm there from Finn Baxter, but Gloucester come away with it. They fly hack through, but not rolling away. Advantage was being played to Gloucester after Ojo tidied up in the backfield. More promising, but more energy, more zest, more verve from Gloucester. They looked flat all first half, and I'm going to suggest they might have got a rocket from the coaches in that half-time huddle.
I think there was definitely a hairdryer in that half-time talk somewhere. I just love the way that they've started the second half with a better tempo. They've kept the ball alive a lot more. We've seen more offloads, and that's allowed them to get in behind the Quins' defence, and that's what they lacked in the first half. And they've shown that when they do that, they can play some good rugby, and I hope this means that we see a really exciting second half from them.
Many of the players, in fact all the players on the field, are probably the star players in their school sides. They are at schools which are very successful. Is this part of the learning process to be involved in games against teams where they're not the top dogs and that they are on the receiving end of humbling scorelines at the moment? You know, it's nothing too grave, 24-0, but for many of these boys, they're used to being in control of games. They're used to being the dominant force. And this is part of their tutelage almost?
For me, I just think experience is so key. I don't think you can ever learn less. I'm not a huge fan of one-sided scorelines because I often wonder whether both sides have got something out of it, but you can't take away from the fact that Quins have played brilliantly this first half. But if that gets a response from Gloucester and Gloucester adapt and try to change the way they've been playing, then it won't do them a disservice to lose the match, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's great to see probably some of the best schoolboy rugby players being challenged, because I think sometimes in their own school environments they might not be being challenged as much as they might on a day like today, being surrounded by these players. But yeah, they're certainly showing what they're made of.
Well, the second half has certainly recommenced with plenty of gusto. Big hit from Bryn Bradley on the substitute Jack Hewitt, who has been impressive since coming on. Been involved in anything, brought an energy that maybe Gloucester were lacking in the first half. Awkward bounce of the ball as Quins cleared. They regather possession, look to keep the ball alive, but take it to ground eventually.
No, right. Stay there, guys.
Quins player certainly indulging himself in the length of time he took to place the ball there, but the referee absolutely happy with it. Quins build again, they put it onto the toe. That's cute, that's lovely.
Still playing scrum.
From Elliot Powell. Just onto the field. I think that's Elliot Powell. Is that a 13 or an 18? It's a difficult number to read.
Scrum advantage over.
I'll confirm for you viewers at home shortly. Cassius Clay doing a defensive shift this time, and shows he's a dab hand at rucking as well, though Gloucester are making themselves nuisances. Really good start to this second half from both sides, in fact. But Quins have broken through. It's in the hands of the fullback, Slevin, who rounds his opposite man and evades the clutches of Josiah Edwards-Giro. And that is one for the highlights reel for Connor Slevin.
Yeah, I was just about to comment on the fact that I was impressed that Gloucester seemed to be getting off the line a little bit quicker in defence, but if you get off the line that quick, you've got to make those tackles. That was just too easy for Harlequins then. They read the fact that Gloucester were going to blitz them, and as they sped up, it just made it too easy for them to be stepped. And you can't afford somebody with that much pace and feet like that amount of time and space on the ball. And again, another great finish.
Goodness me, deceptively quick as well. It looked like he was coasting, looking for support, but before you knew it, he was round the fullback, and it was too late for Josiah Edwards-Giro to capture him.
Well, that's a really good lesson to young players out there who are watching, that actually if you make the defenders think that you've got options around you and you might be passing that ball or you might be putting the kick through, it just puts a bit of doubt in their mind. And that's all that happened then to the two remaining Gloucester defenders, was they were just in two minds as to whether to commit to making that tackle on him or whether he was going to get that offload away. And that's been sort of, for me, the most important part of the Quins game so far, is that they have just kept that ball alive so well.
Well, it is one of the most basic coaching pointers, and one that kids will tear their hair out from hearing so many times. But having the ball in two hands shows that you have options, and it creates decisions for the defenders to make, even if there may not be decisions for you to make.
Absolutely, and I think because Quins have played with such variety, whether that had been an option of passing and offloading to somebody or whether that had been that he was going to put the kick through himself, Quins have played with such variety that it just seems like Gloucester aren't quite sure what's going to come at them next, and that puts doubt in their mind.
Two guys.
So a fumble from Ted
Forward,
Johnson,
Gloucester player.
recent entrance to the field of play, another Wellington College man, arrived back from South Africa only this morning.
Impressive.
So straight off the plane.
He'll be your captain now.
He's probably been a lot warmer than we have over the last however
He
long.
did remark when I was speaking to him before the game that the change in temperature was marked. Maybe that could explain the frosty fingertips that he showed just then.
I think that's what he'll go with.
That's the excuse we'll give him.
Hold there,
A nice
hold there,
platform
Quins.
for Gloucester.
Just stay down, 8.
Right of the post. Few metres outside the 22. Good handling. They're down the left wing. Elusive stuff from Edwards-Giro. And that is a wonderful line from Jack Hamilton. They're 6 short. Matty Jones looks to dart down the blind side.
Notch forward. Yeah,
But
12 on to 14.
A knock from the Gloucester player's hand into the winger, who was waiting patiently for the ball, means it's a knock on, it's a scrum to Quins. It's a great finish. We just saw some fingertips come into play and deviate the ball, didn't we?
Yeah, interestingly, that break came from, again, another example of Quins, for me, their only slight weakness in this game, which has been around the rucks, where they just appear to get caught sometimes, either without the players that they should have in position or those players not quite being alert. And And we always talk to our players at school about don't just stand there with your arm in the air and shout that you're guard. You've actually got to understand what your position and what your role and responsibility is there. And that, for me, has been the only weakness for Quins so far, has been around those fringes.
Well, for the first time, one out the back doesn't go to hand for Quins, and here come Gloucester attacking down the right. Can they punish Quins? No, they can't. The ball goes backwards. Quins then knock it on, so it is advantage Gloucester from the Ojo knock-on. Nothing coming. The ref brings back the play. Thought for a moment that Gloucester were going to round the outside and get in for their maiden score.
I think Quins will be really impressed with their defence so far this game, whether that's been somewhat scrambled, like in this situation when they cough up the ball and get a turnover. The way they react and transition from attack to defence and from defence to attack has really impressed me today. And some of these players that we've looked at and thought how dangerous they look in attack, they've proved that they're just as dangerous in defence. And Kitan was really unlucky to fumble that forward, because I think he had quite a bit of space in front of him then, and he's been so dangerous this half, ball in hand.
Yes, he certainly would have backed Kitan to potentially go the length there. So, as I mentioned in the first half, the stream supported today by Alive, designing your well-being. Seen a few lower thirds throughout the game, including Delalio Rugby Works, who work with young people on long-term skill development programs based on the values of rugby, with the main aim to get teenagers outside of mainstream education into sustained education, employment or training. As I mentioned, a shout out to one of our cameramen today from Delalio Rugby Works. Mounted Memories, memorabilia framing specialists helping you bring your items to life. And Guardian Pro mouthguards, who give your teeth every sporting chance. Last but not least, iSports Analysis, the world's most powerful online sports analysis program. Well, I have a one-woman analysis program next to me, Stash, as we take a break for an unfortunate looking injury to one of the Gloucester boys. We've got 24 minutes left. How do you feel both sides will be approaching this final 24 minutes? What's Finn Baxter saying in the huddle there to the Quins lads? What are the messages in the Gloucester huddle?
Well, I think Gloucester have come out a different side this second half, and I think it's been much more of an even contest so far. I still think Quins just have the edge, both in attack and defence. They seem to be a lot more cohesive as a team. I'm not sure how much time the Gloucester boys get to spend together, but I know that the Quins guys see each other every week. They see each other twice a week for game week, and that seems to be showing for me. I think Quins will be saying, let's keep doing what we're doing, it's working, and don't be afraid to keep doing things when they're working well. Don't feel that you have to change just for no reason. But I think Gloucester will be more confident now they've started this second half, and I think they should be pleased with their performance so far this half, and hopefully there's more to come from them, because I still think there's a contest available, but I still think we've got more to see for them. So
Gloucester's young players still receiving attention on the field. Not sure which number it is, but obviously everyone wishing him the best. Plenty of good staff around to support these young lads. Make sure they're playing in the safest of environments. You mentioned the cohesion there, Stash. Now, I know that Quins have whittled their wider academy down to probably about 40 players total. Speaking to the Gloucester coaches beforehand, they operate at about 50 players. They have 30 under 18s, 20 under 17s. Do you think that's a more intimate academy squad we're seeing the benefits because there's more rotation in the Gloucester academy potentially?
To be honest, I can't comment on the Gloucester guys because I haven't seen that environment and I haven't been into that setup. But I know that Quins is an academy where players come and go through that programme, so they can dip in and out. There'll be players that might have been in the programme as a youngster who then come out of the programme and come back in again. There's certainly players who get spotted later on and get brought in, and there'll be players that are are new to the academy set up, potentially within weeks or months of this game happening. And I think that creates a really good environment within Surrey, Sussex and some of the boroughs within London where Harlequins operate, because it gives them a really broad spectrum of players to look at. I know they do a lot of work where they go out and they watch players at school games and club games, and they're always on the lookout for players who maybe haven't been on anybody's radar as a youngster but who've kicked on and developed. And anybody in rugby knows that rugby's a late developing sport, and those players who are the best at under 12, under 13 are not necessarily the ones who are the best at 17, 18, and I think that's really important and mindful for players to think about if they do ever experience disappointment when they're younger, in terms of maybe not getting an opportunity the same as one of their teammates might, in that if you just keep working hard and you're diligent with your rugby and everything that goes alongside that, your S&C, your nutrition and that kind of thing, that those opportunities will come if you're good enough.
So that's encouraging to hear. I know you look after the pastoral side of the players an awful lot of Harlequins, that even if you leave the academy, there's still eyes on you. You're not just jettisoned, you're not used and discarded. There's eyes on you. They continue to track your personal development, and there's opportunity to come back in.
Absolutely.
Because I can imagine very disheartening to leave a setup after being so proud of gaining entry initially.
Yeah, and that can happen at any age. That can happen at 14, 15. It can happen once you've left the academy at 18. Very few contracts are given at the end of every season, but that doesn't mean players don't get brought back in if they start pulling up trees in their university side, or they start playing club rugby at a good level, and they can get brought back in at any time.
Well, you mentioned the university side of things, and Quins particularly profiting from Buck Super Rugby. I know that two players in particular who'll be turning out for Quins in the big game today. Alex Dombrandt, he was playing for Cardiff Met only 2 years ago, in fact, and Tom Lauday was at Exeter 3 years ago. So Quins and teams have players, have eyes everywhere these days.
Yeah, definitely. And
this is nice play from Quins as they break out of their 22. Good footwork, stands up his opposite number. There's support there as well from Bryn Bradley, who finds that man, Cassius Cleves, who's been involved in absolutely everything brilliant that Quins have done. A coast-to-coast try. Again, summing up this Quins side, who have been incredibly impressive today.
yeah, I think they've taken almost every chance they've had so far, and that's been the difference. When they've made those breaks, there hasn't just been one player in support, there's been a player on either side, and that makes it really hard to defend against. But again, we see ball in two hands here from Oscar Beard, and the options that they've got on either side of them are fantastic. As a coach, you often talk about supporting space, and that's understanding that a player doesn't just need you there, but he needs you in a position where if he can get the ball to you, you're then going to be effective. And I've loved the fact that Harlequins have made such good decisions so far this game, and they really have supported the space so well.
Well, the wingers have been working hard, haven't they? The wingers, the fullback, the centres, all working hard off the ball. They may not be getting the ball, but they're giving the perception that they're going to receive the ball. And again, we're talking about creating decisions for the defenders to make.
Coming back! Hands out! Sorry now.
Gloucester go again, but so do Quins from wide. Knocked on in the tackle, the referee playing advantage. And Quins will take that advantage, thanks very much. Into Slevin's hands.
Just penalty.
Referee calls play back for a penalty. Not quite sure what that one's for. Intentional knockdown.
I think that last passage of play has just shown us the effectiveness of the Harlequins kick receipt. They've only missed one kick receipt so far this game, and that's been so key for them, because even then when the ball was carried back into their 22, they just seem so comfortable in possession, and they seem so comfortable to run it out of their own 22 that Gloucester are really struggling to know whether to kick it short because they're going to give them territory, and potentially steal the possession, or whether to kick it long and then be under pressure defensively because they're running against broken field.
Do you feel that
Option red.
gone are the days of teams having an identity in their style of play? You think about the successful Leicester teams of old, that it was very forward, power dominated, and then you'd have sides that were known for their exciting, exhilarating back play. Whereas now, these days, you need to be an all-court side that have variety and can perform in every single department to make yourself as undefendable as possible.
Yeah, I think there's been a major shift within English rugby, and a lot more emphasis is now put on kind of individual players' decision making, and that's so apparent here, that the players are given the freedom to make those decisions, and they're given the confidence to back those decisions as well by the coaches, and I think that's so much more important than having a style of play. I think Quins would argue that they do have a distinct style of play, which is to play a fast, high-tempo, exciting game of rugby, and that's from the first team right the way through down to the DPP at the younger age groups. And clubs like Harlequins, I know, do have those styles, but the most important thing on match day is you can't know what you need to do until you know what the defence are going to do. So if you've got players who only have a set structure and they only know how to play one way, well, if the defence turn up and they know how to counter that, then you're stuffed. So I'd much rather see a squad of 22 or 23 players who are all capable of making their own decisions, who can then react in real time to the match as it's going on, because that, for me, is going to support our English players and the future of our national team so much better than if certain clubs only teach players to play a certain way.
Yes, a hugely exciting performance from Quins today, but get the sense that in their older years, some of these forwards might have to learn to win ugly as well.
Yeah, and I don't think, I think Harlequins have shown that they can do the donkey work in defence. I think their defence today has been phenomenal, but you're always going to come up against players with different experiences, and that's why I think opportunities to play in matches like this are so key for these boys, because it does get them to play against players that they might not meet on the normal school circuit, and to play against teams who've been coached in a different way to maybe some of the school teams are coached, or your local club sides are coached. So that's fantastically valuable achievements for these guys.
Well, that Quins defence being stressed probably more so than they have done the whole of this game, and Gloucester are held up just over the line. Neil Shivers brings the play back to a penalty infringement. Gloucester get the chance to attack again. This is their most concerted period of pressure in the game, no doubt about it.
It's also the first penalty that they've won in the opposition 22. They've previously only conceded penalties in this position, so I hope this gives them the confidence now to put together an attack that they'll be pleased with and proud of, and maybe something that they've worked on in training.
Well, their main line-out totem, Arthur Clark, is in there. They don't go to him, and they pay the penalty. But the loose ball still ends up in red hands. Can they find the width outright? But it's poor handling. The ball bouncing around awkwardly. No one getting their mitts on it definitively until Ted Johnson puts an end to it. Drops on the ball, and Quins looking to exit now. They carry through the forwards. Will Hobson on the field, but a knock-on from Quins. You can't help but admire the way that they play in their own 22, but that is bound to happen on occasion.
Yeah, and I think I'm reluctant to say, oh, you shouldn't play in certain areas of the field, because if they feel something's on or they want to back their handling and their running lines, then fair play to them, because I think that's exactly how the game should be played. I think the only message to young players is that the potential for conceding possession or losing possession in an area like this could be more costly than it would if they were up the other end of the field. But I don't think that should dictate the decisions they make or the way they try to play based on where they are on the pitch. I think that's quite an outdated way of thinking, potentially, particularly for young and developing players.
Yeah, I don't think that pragmatism exists in the Quins Academy dictionary from what I've seen so far today, Stash.
And long may it continue for the neutral and for the excited commentator. But they have presented Gloucester with a gilt-edged opportunity to get on the score sheet. They go blind. Matty Jones is now on the wing because Harry Gibson is playing scrum half. They're a couple meters out. Clark, again, industrious. Matty Jones now in at the base, forgetting that he's on the wing. Here we go, Gloucester. Step back into the forthcoming Quins defence. They're 2 meters out, the ball's gone loose. They keep on it miraculously. Long ball over the top. Can they finish? Good strength out the back, and finally Gloucester get across the try line. Luke Shuttleworth, he's been at it all day and finally gets his just desserts. Gloucester on the score sheet. The big miss pass after some hard work in the midfield and the right side. Well done, Gloucester.
I'm really pleased for them here. I think they had to work hard to keep possession. It's a great decision there from Harry Gibson to fire that long ball out, and Josiah's looked dangerous since he's come on, and I thought he would challenge the defence more, but actually it was the right decision. The support player was just out of shot for us, so great decision there to pass that ball out for Luke to finish in the corner.
Well, I'd love to have seen a reverse angle of how he managed to squeeze that ball out to Shuttleworth, who was lurking with intent on his left shoulder. But that magic will be kept under wraps, and only Josiah Edwards-Giro will know how he quite managed it. Shuttleworth more than happy to gobble it up and get across the line. The extras missed from Gloucester, but the main thing is they're across the paint and have registered their first try of the afternoon. And they've looked a lot better in this second half.
Yeah, they really have, and I can't say this with any confidence because I haven't got an ear in the Quins camp, but I certainly know that at Trinity, where I work, if a scoreline gets quite one-sided, to make it meaningful for the players and to make sure that they're still being challenged, because ultimately, even if you're winning a game, you still want your players to be challenged. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Quins have been conditioned to not kick out of their own 22. It looks like it's been a conscious decision, and that just allows them to be put under pressure and to be in a situation that they might find themselves in one day where maybe their kicker's injured or they're at the bottom of a ruck. And it just seems to me like Quins have made a conscious decision that they're not going to kick to clear their lines out of their 22. And if that's a conscious coaching decision, then hats off to the Quins guys, because that would be the type of thing that we would do at school to try and make sure that those players are still being challenged within that environment and that context.
Well, that's fascinating to know that teams will be conditioned in the final stages of a game if they're in an advanced enough lead. And again, just playing into the developmental side first and foremost.
As coaches, you want to prepare your players for every scenario, and you're not always going to be 38-0 up in a match, and therefore it's so good when you have got the security of a scoreline, which I know is important to a lot of coaches, not necessarily in all schools, not necessarily at all ages, but it's so important for me to give those players the experiences that they're going to need one day, even if they don't need it just yet.
Huge collision in the midfield. Marcus Redding clattered by Nathan Jabulu. It looks like the Quins hooker maybe done himself a mischief in the process. Receiving some attention. So tell me, Stash, what other conditions might an academy or a school put on a game in these latter stages with a healthy scoreline to their ledger?
I don't think it's always necessarily just dependent on the scoreline. I think a lot of teams will do it based on maybe what the areas of the game they want to work on and that kind of thing. We use clickers at Trinity, so like nightclub clickers to count certain things like number of dominant
I've seen your
tackle.
head of rugby. He looks like a doorman.
I love you for saying that. But yeah, we often condition either the team as a whole or certain individuals within the team, and that could be for team development purposes or for individuals. And I found it so beneficial as a coach myself, because it allows you to create pressures that might not be being created by the game itself, and that could be scenario based, or it could be skill development based, technical or tactical things. So some of the things that, to give you examples of what we might do, we might limit the number of players that are allowed to go into our rucks or the opposition rucks. We might condition the tackle height. So we might say that for the next 7 minutes, you're only allowed to chop tackle, you're not allowed to go high. And that might allow, if we are dominant, it might allow the opposition to get some offloads away. That challenges us as in a defensive perspective to have to try and defend
You
against.
might have to scramble then as a result, because they're
absolutely.
getting in behind you with more regularity.
Absolutely, and for me, scorelines are great, and it's great. I know that players want to win, but for me, I'd rather see a complete all-round player leaving school at the age of 18 with a broad skill set and a really good understanding of what to do in what situation and various scenarios, and that just all adds to the decision making that we've been talking about, and I think that's the way that rugby's going now, certainly in a lot of schools, and it's helping our players massively.
Well, sorry to cut you off there, Stash, but a red card has been issued to Nathan Jabula. It did look like a messy tackle that sacrificed a bit of technique. Without the benefit of a replay, I can only assume that it was deemed a no-arms tackle. I don't know if it was high, but Nathan Jabula leaves the field, and Quins will finish the match with 14 men. I do believe we've got a replay, so we'll definitely take a look, because it's something we weren't expecting, to be honest. We're chatting quite casually about the conditions of the game.
And up to that point, he has been brilliant for Quins. He's been such a talisman in attack and defence for them, so they're going to really miss him, and they're going to have to work hard now. They've only got 14.
Well, the back standing up in his absence with some mighty defence. Oscar Beard doing the job, but Gloucester have broken through. It's in the hands of the second row. Support from the replacement hooker, Morgan Venice. Gloucester must be composed. They're 3 metres out. They have an extra man. Again, those fringes looking weak, but they go wide. Over the top, into the hands of Josiah Edwards-Giro, who shows that elusiveness and scampers across the line for Gloucester's second. It's 38-10 with the kick to come, 10 minutes to play. Quins down to 14 men. Are we in for a climactic finish?
This is exactly what you want from a game of rugby. Obviously, we never want to see a red card, we never want to see foul play, but to see a contest now where Quins are going to be really challenged, maybe in a way they haven't been challenged so far, but also to see some of these Gloucester players who will have been buoyed by that yellow card, knowing that they're finishing this game with a man up, and it'll be really interesting to see how they play with their tails up and a bit of wind behind them.
Well, I think Edwards-Giro looked up and he saw a front row and a second row, licked his lips, stepped off his left, and finished well with acres of space around him in all truth.
Yeah, and that's where the try came from ultimately. It's the scanning of the players before that to A, recognise that he was out in space, and B, manage the space so that they could get that ball to him without pulling all the defence across. So really well worked try there from Gloucester, taking advantage of that extra man that they've got now for the remaining 10 minutes of this game.
No extras once again from, well, a carbon copy kick from Gloucester. The score 38-10. Approximately 8.5 minutes remaining. Our clock not absolutely precise and timed in with the referees. But still enough for Gloucester to enjoy themselves for this final 10, especially with that extra man, and they're finding gaps now. It's amazing what confidence and momentum will do to a side, but Quins now have possession. Liner test the line initially.
That again, sorry. 5 offside.
Before Gloucester come through offside to take out the 9.
I lost it, mate.
That's Ben Potter of Dulwich. He's got the ball in his hands.
Yeah, that's fine, no problem.
Converted back row, now playing 10. There's an all-court
Hey,
player
mate.
for you, and well, this is a extraordinary decision from Quins. They're going to go for the poles and take 3 points. So clearly alarm bells ringing sufficiently for the Harlequin men to want to just extend that lead and make it a little bit more comfortable.
It could be a tactical thing that they just need a little bit more time to sort out what's going to happen in the line out. Otherwise, again, if the players have been left to make those decisions, then it could just be a bit of kicking practice for Mr. Liner.
Having taken the decision, Tom Liner duly steps up and splits the uprights. The blonde bombshell adding 3 points to the Quins tally and taking them to 41 points, a 31-point lead in the closing stages of this game. First kick at goal from a penalty in the match. Just puffing up their cushion a little bit further. Steady the nerves, take the sting out of Gloucester as well, because they certainly have had their tails up for most of this half, and certainly since getting those 2 scores. As they put it on the laces in behind the Quins defence, Cassius Cleves mops up and brings the play to the midfield. Big carry in the midfield, but met by 2 large Gloucester men, Jack Hamilton and Freddie Thomas. Show and go from Quins, chose not to use Cleves, although Cleves has it now, steps inside. Such good feet. But the presentation not quite on point, and Gloucester have it now. They strike down the left-hand side. Up to the 22. Josiah Edwards-Giroux, increasingly pertinent in this game. But Freddie Thomas, he's the one doing the hard carry. The graft, the engine room grunt. Quins had a sniff of a turnover for a moment, but Gloucester come away with it over the top. Here we go, the try scorer. Good carry, bumps one, taken to floor. They're back where they started 90 seconds ago. Great line from Thomas, who offloads. Harry Gibson, he's added value since coming off the bench. To Morgan Venice's hands. 2 tries he scored against Bristol last week. Came off the bench, unlucky not to start, in fact, according to the coaches. Gloucester just edging deeper into the Quins red zone, forcing the penalty. A tap from the West Country men. They take it a few meters further to the whitewash, and again a pick through the middle, those fringes being exploited, but Benji Williams is ripped in the tackle. Quins have the ball. Are we finally going to see the men in quarters put boot to ball to clear their lines? It doesn't look so, because Ted Johnson is carrying in close quarters now. Fumble from Liner, under pressure from red attentions. Does well to recover, knock on from Quins. And if you were to go to a rugby realtor with all the money in the world and choose your location, this would probably be it to build your scrum, wouldn't it, Stash?
Yeah, I just want to see some composure from them now. They will have been really disappointed with some of the opportunities that they've missed in this area of the game. I love the intent from Quins that they're still trying to play it out from their own 22. I feel that they've just lost a little bit of tempo since Nathan went off. But I'm really excited to see what Gloucester are doing here. They've got 2 men standing directly behind the scrum. That's going to cause problems for the defence, particularly because they know they're a man down. So really interested to see whether this is a training part move that they can pull off here.
They need to hold their scrum first. It's a powerful shunt from Quins. They take the short option through Hillman Cooper, who's been dogged all day. It's messy at the breakdown for Gloucester. The hands in the ruck this time is the offence from Quins. Adley Jones thought for a moment to go quick.
Yeah, 4th penalty now that Harlequins have conceded in their own 22, so they need to be really careful. What they can't afford now is to lose a man to the bin for repeated infringements, so they're going to have to be really on the money about how they play within the laws of the game.
Gloucester have really done themselves proud in this second half. They came out with plenty more gusto than the first. Well worth their 2 tries, especially in the 4th quarter of the game. With Quins reduced to 14 men, they've really found a confident streak. And how they'd love to register a 3rd right in the closing moments of this game. Something to take down the M4 as they go wide. They find the try scorer once again. And an easy finish for Josiah Edwards-Giro, his 2nd of the game. He has been awesome since coming onto the field.
Yeah, he's caused them all sorts of problems so far. He's a really strong ball carrier, but he's also got good feet and good acceleration, and he's shown us that he can finish a couple of really good tries so far. I'm pleased for Gloucester because I really felt like the first half wasn't a reflection of what they were capable of. I felt like they were just a little bit intimidated by the early pressure that Harlequins put under them. But Josiah's really made a nuisance of himself over on that left wing, and another well-finished try for him.
Well, let's talk about the mood in the camps as we approach the final seconds, minutes of this game. Yes, Gloucester may have lost this, but these 3 tries, this second half performance, they've got something to take away with them now, and they can really look at themselves honestly and say, we didn't make a fair representation of ourselves in the first half. The second half is the Gloucester side that we are and that we want to be, and they're going to go home with slightly more spirit than they may have thought so 25 minutes ago. As we see them break once more, is this going to be their bonus point try? It's a show and go from Benji Williams. He's still going into the 22. Composure, composure. That's what's needed here, Gloucester. Though Quins have reorganised their defence, Gloucester probe down the short side. Freddie Thomas increasingly pertinent in this game. He's worked hard, really hard in this second half, and Jack Hamilton brought a lot of energy. Gloucester are going to look to move the ball wide right. The try scorer, Edwards-Giro, looking to wrap up his hat-trick on the right wing this time. It's been a game where wingers have worked hard, and there's one who's worked harder than most, Cassius Cleves. Been awesome in attack, showing that he knows the dark arts of the breakdown as well with a turnover. Quinn slow it down, look to kick it out. A deflection off a Gloucester player, and that is that, ladies and gentlemen. Harlequins prevail 41 points to 15 against this spirited second half Gloucester side. Tries from Luke Shuttleworth and a deuce from Josiah Edwards-Giro, giving the Gloucester men something to carry back down on the team bus this afternoon. And all in all, an entertaining romp from both sides. but Harlequins really well worth their win, Stash.
Yeah, absolutely. Gloucester really brought a game to Harlequins in the second half, and I thought they showed us what they were capable of a lot better. But take nothing away from a very all-round and complete Quins performance on both sides of the ball, in attack and defence. I thought they were exceptional. I thought there were some outstanding individual performances. But as a team, I thought they were really cohesive. I thought they managed the game very well. And I think they asked a lot of pertinent questions from Gloucester that at times went unanswered. Although I think Gloucester made some good changes in the second half. And I think those 3 tries were really just deserved for their efforts. I think the first half wasn't what they were capable of, and definitely wasn't us seeing them at their best. So I wish them the best of luck for their remaining games in this league.
And with your coaching hat on, how do both these sides move forward from today? Where do Gloucester go? Where do Quins go? They're going to be very different conversations that both these sides are having. Looking at Quins first, is there going to be an element of disappointment in the way that they finished that game?
Yeah, I think that the red card was an isolated incident. I don't think it was a reflection of poor discipline. I mean, Quins only conceded, on my count, only conceded 7 tries this whole game. So I think for me, they'll be pleased with their discipline. But I think it did stretch them at the end, and they were under a lot more pressure at the end of that second half than they were in the first half. But they'd earned that. They had so much possession and they had so much territory, and that was through good decision making, good game management. But I think they will look to work on areas such as their discipline in their own 22, because I think that was costly for them. It allowed Gloucester to stay in that area of the field, and it gave them valuable possession, which eventually they utilised. So I think Quins will look to make amends for that. And I would also say that from a very kind of hypercritical perspective, they'll probably feel that the tempo dropped out of the game from their perspective in the last 10 minutes. They weren't quite playing with that edge that they had earlier on in the game.
Well, 4 tries in the first half really put Quins in the box seat, a 24-0 lead that they never truly relinquished. But there were 5 in the second half, this time shared around, and the lion's share going to Gloucester. Let's have a quick look at those. It was Quins first, and this was an individual piece of brilliance from Connor Slevin. And what wheels, effortless wheels.
Yeah, it was just that little touch where he put the ball into 2 hands that left Josiah kind of just guessing whether he was going to have to move across and tackle somebody else, or whether he was able to commit to that tackle, and that just gave him the half break that allowed him to go through.
See Paul Burke, the head of rugby at Epsom College, there in the background, admiring the play of some of his charges and the schools that they come up against regularly on the circuit. The next try, well, again, Quins with the goods. And this typified what Quins were all about today. Transition ball, initially for Gloucester to have the chance. As we see Slevin's try once again. And this is the try we're talking about. From prop to inside centre, 2 hands on the ball. His centre partner in support, and Cassius Cleve once again lurking with ominous intent on the left shoulder, coasting across for his 2nd of the game.
Yeah, there'll be some coaches who've probably been listening to me saying, what's she going on about? Why are you getting encouraging players to play out of your 22? But that's a classic example there of why you should allow the players to have the freedom to play out their 22. That was a really well-worked try from a break where they had tried to run it. And I'd argue that if they'd kicked that, they'd have given possession to the opposition and it would have been a different story.
Well, next up, it's Luke Shuttleworth, made by the mercurial hands of Josiah Edwards-Giroux, who had a remarkable impact on the game as a whole. You wonder what difference he could have made had he played for the whole 70. A Houdini-esque ball from his grasp. And he then had his opportunity to get on the score sheet, licking his lips at the prospect of a 2nd row and front row in front of him, finishing in acres of space.
Yeah, he still had some work to do. Those missed passes are always dangerous because it allows the defence to move across and cover those gaps. But he did really well to anticipate that the players opposite him were drifting across, and he just caught the weak shoulder and cut a good line inside for an excellent finish.
And this, his final one, very strong finish in the left corner. And Gloucester finishing with a flourish ultimately. And so another thank you to our stream supporters for the day. Alive, designing your well-being. Delalio Rugby Works, who work with young people on long-term skill development programs based on the values of rugby, aiming to get teenagers outside of mainstream education into sustained education, employment or training. iSports Analysis, the world's most powerful online sports analysis platform. Guardian Pro mouthguards, who give your teeth every sporting chance. And Mounted Memories, memorabilia framing specialists, helping you bring your items to life. Certainly a number of tries out here today, worth going on the show reel or in the scrapbook. 9 tries in all today, 6 of them to Quins, 3 to Gloucester, and the final score here, Harlequins 41, Gloucester 15. I, like you, need to get my skates on to get to Twickenham Stadium for the big game, which is Harlequins proper against Leicester Tigers. I'm going to be amongst the nearly 80,000 who are going there today. But Stash, first of all, I must thank you for joining us up here, and then it's a thank you to you, the viewers, for tuning in today. Wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
There's 2 jacket bags.
Shot away, it's just another super goal.
Welcome back, everybody, pitchside. England have won this one 22 points to 6. There's a little bit of an arm wrestle at the start, but England ran away with it in the end.
Champions, the London Monarchs. Winners of 2018. Well done, boys. Let's give it up. Go on, lads.
Make it
welcome to the glorious sunshine of the LDN Sevens, where we have got wall-to-wall rugby and one hell of a party coming at you all weekend.
The whole vibe here has changed from last year. It's got more of a massive festival theme now as well. Bigger, better, and rugby's really good as well.
So burgers, beers, good vibes, plenty of top rugby, so get yourself down here to the LDN Sevens 2019.
I tell you what, drinking pints and winning a tournament, what more could you want? Like pints, rugby winning, and just taking the people to the cleaners. I love it.